Join us on another exciting adventure of Exodus.
So I've been waiting for somebody else to make a video about this since my last video before I brought it up. And since nobody has yet, I'm just gonna say it. I think it's time we talked a bit about solid state flight. And this is in regards to a lot of the Antiquitech, particularly regarding flight, that we've been studying recently on my channel and on others, where I've noticed a lot of channels recently have pivoted to talking about different types of flight, wouldn't you know it. But yet, none of them have so far gotten into detail about how solid state flight works, and it's very important to this entire equation. And by now, we would have addressed this on the Tartaria live radio chat, our radio show that we've had for over a year now. But due to unforeseen technical difficulties, such as Google pulling apart and dismantling their Google Hangouts program, I've had to seek out an alternative of our own. And with the help of a few recent Tartarians, the recent Tartarian show is almost back on the air, which is really good because apparently our viewership is starting to grow again. And that reminds me, so for some of you who are new, let me introduce to you a little bit of who we are and what I am. So my name's Andreas, you're watching the Exodus channel. All this material is part of a series that we've created for a website called Tartaria Nova, which details all sorts of things regarding history that you've probably never heard about before. And if you did, you might not have known a few experts in Holland, Taiwan, and all the right people around the world, such as Michael Bodegraven, the world's leading expert in star forts, a seemingly anomalous yet ubiquitous cultural landmark of an otherwise lost civilization, or someone who could read ancient Scandinavian texts like Victor Boog, an expert in history and Antiquitech, living in Aarhus, Denmark. On our Discord radio chat server, these and many more recent Tartarians from all over the world, volcanosophers like Brittany, and Organite and all-around expert Nathan, many of them with their own channels like Baked and Awake, but many of these recent Tartarians just working with us. I may be talking about you, Unisocial, Subiet, Brett, Jay, all coming together into some sort of an exodus with the intention of divulging as many former secrets as possible in order that the collective consciousness can digest them. That's basically why we've created this show, Recent Tartarians, in order to work together to unlock these secrets and put them in the open. And that's just something I've been interested in doing for a very long time, for a number of reasons, which I don't want to go too deep into myself right now, but here's my old Ames Research Visitor badge. I had to block out some of the information on it, so I used pictures of ABBA, which is a pretty cool band, but I'm pretty sure the part that's worth noting is that I was allowed to wander around Ames Research Center with no escort. No big deal, don't worry about it. Though to be fair, I'm not claiming I worked on flying saucers. My main job was stoichiometric research as an intern looking at scanning electron microscopy, all because I came up with a pretty interesting way of using laser ablation to create graphene, and more importantly, sheets of hexagonal metal composites and alloys using laser beams, because I love lasers, and lasers are awesome. But all I was trying to do was learn about density storage technology and different types of composites. All composites that we've found since the 16th century to have come from the lost land of Tartaria. And I study Tartaria. And some of you might still not have heard of Tartaria. For those of you who haven't, check your old maps and history books.
Check the news.
And you'll start finding out about a place that's been hidden for all too long, and yet rediscovered all so recently. A country noted in history with such mythical proportions that it would seem, with the evidence today, this land may have once spanned the entire Earth. How a lost empire with a name like Tartaria could have slipped the minds of historians, well, that's why I study Tartaria. And that long intro brings me to this video's topic, which starts out by looking at the old Tartarian flying machines. And I'll admit, the first time I saw these pictures, for hundreds of times after that, I did not get it. These pictures, which have been historically presented to us to be early flying machines, a lot of which did not work out, experimental, crazy flying crafts, not suitable for flight, made in a primitive time when people simply did not understand the concepts. Yet you have to wonder, why? Why did they decide to build them this way? Why did they have so much confidence that they would work? And yet, why have we been taught that these kinds of designs for planes are completely insane? Namely, these bi- and tri-winged planes, not made out of a sturdy metal, but out of some sort of very light canvas and wood, often like a bra, with a thin wire frame, and always stacked with these double wings. In fact, sometimes far more than double wings. And you have to wonder, according to these rules of flight, even the ones that they believed in at that point, did anyone really think that this made any sense that it would fly? This isn't even two wings. This is 20 wings. This is basically a motorized tricycle with 20 wings. What do you even call that? That's like
icosahedral tricycle biplane.
dodecatricyclosail, patent pending. But really, 20 wings? And like, how tall are these wings? Look at how wide they are. This is a very thin craft. What, according to even 19th century rules of flight, this just doesn't make sense, right? Right? I mean, it's just crazy. It just seems like some sort of magical flying carpet thing. And that's when I started to realize why it made perfect sense and how it actually works. And gliders are actually where magic carpets get pretty interesting. Now, these are some disclosures about the past, the present, and the future that I've been hesitant to disclose because not that I don't want other channels making videos about this, not that I don't want people to know, it's just this information is very dangerous because not only does it rebuke everything that we've been taught about aerophysics, about flight and aviation, but it also vividly fills in the picture about what's really going on in our reality and why things work the way they do. And that's the study of ion fields and the Ionic breeze, which makes it possible for solid-state flight. So what the heck is solid-state flight? And what the heck are ion fields? And I actually made this video a little early also because NASA released technology. And I'm also releasing this video before I release the rest of the series that I've been doing on ancient electromagnetic crafts, because some of this history is only a few days old. For instance, the release of the Ionic engine that NASA plans to use, the abstractly vast distances through these supposed vacuums. And rather than this technology simply being disclosed, the actual documentation for the design of this Ionic engine were published MIT license, meaning free to interpret and to replicate. That is to say, they put this thing in public domain. The way an Ionic engine works, similarly to the last few videos we've been talking about, relies instead of on normal air, instead of on normal gases, instead runs on ionized plasma. You see, we live inside of this giant electromagnetic field, one with many bands, including extremely high bands and extremely low frequency bands, known as the ELF bands. And when they start to expand, we see an increase in the frequencies of the harmonized Earth. This is referred to as the Schumann resonance. You can actually track the Schumann resonance online, as Lee Blanche, one of our expert recent Tartarians, does for us on the Discord. Fascinatingly, the same day that NASA released the documentation for the Ionic engine, the Schumann resonance jumped up to 60 Hertz. It usually varies, but sometimes it's as low as 3 Hertz. 60 is pretty high. Now this might all seem like just some new age electro-astrology, but in a time where there's very little things that we can actually document besides the magnetic field, the best theory we have about Earth is that it is involved in a magnetic field. And if you believe it all in atoms, which monadically have volume and mass, which are ionized with electrons, it basically means all matter is magnetic, and so the Earth is made up of magnets. However you experience the Earth, as ionized plasmic matter. And plasma is a pretty fancy buzzword, but really what it comes down to, if you fourth state of matter. The funny thing about that is it's sort of like a joke about the fourth dimension of time, because plasma, like water, exists in all states. It has a lot to do with crystals and metal, and yes, there is plasma even in your blood. So in a lot of ways, the Earth is a magnetic field made of plasma, and those nanocrystals vibrate in radio frequencies, which create electromagnetic orbitals. These electromagnetic orbitals associate different tangents of particles. The dark matter theory of multiple dimensions could very well be true, in the sense that particles can exist at 2 different places in 2 separate states at once, perhaps 3, maybe more. And if those connections are relative, then perhaps there are other relevant chronologies. Google recently acknowledged they had completed their work in quantum computer arrays, made of quantum computers, which can exist simultaneously at 1 or 0 or both in a non-binary system, stacked to a power of 2 to 64, and with proper optimization, 3 to 64. This means a computer about the size of an atomic force microscope could decrypt the passwords of the most powerful computer in the world, one the size of a mall, in only minutes to days. In only days or perhaps minutes. A job which would take arrays of other $100 million computers years. There have been a number of interesting theories about the Schumann resonance, one of my favorite being that the increase in the population of the Earth synchronizes with the number of neurons in the human brain. As we've begun dividing ourselves into regions and hemispheres of that brain, and as we began at the late 19th century, the first steps towards transhumanism, combining technology and electromagnetic radio, and eventually digital cellular, all with our already bioelectric carbon-based lifeform bodies. Carbon which is ionized and magnetic. In other words, you are magnetic and your thoughts are magnetic because they are made of you. Thoughts can become charged and become polarized, and this increase in thought increases the Schumann resonance. There could be a number of other factors that play into it, including environment and weather. However, it is interesting the sorts of things that happen when the Schumann resonance is at its height. Essentially, it's everything. These rockets, which admittedly look steampunk and a lot like the Die Glock or the Kecksburg Bell from the Vril and Thule videos that we've done earlier on NIMSA, seem to function in ways, and this magnetic breeze is used to direct a voltage of 20,000 to negative 20,000 volts. When compared to the journals by Delschow and the Scientific American by the Sonora Air Club in their regards to electromagnetic thrust, ionization of atoms, and propulsion, their similarities are uncanny. I mean, get ready to be wooed by the state-of-the-art physics of this new kind of airplane that looks nothing like the airplanes of today. And are you ready for it? I don't know if this wrestles with your understanding of Antiguitech and futurism the way it did for me, but this is completely blowing my mind, even today, as I talk about it, and I've been thinking about this for months. What do magic thoughts and electromagnetic ionized space dust have to do with the powers of aviation and flight? Well, let Peter Pan tell you. Essentially, it's everything.
Is this airing right now?
This program is coming to you via Relay 2 satellite, a spacecraft orbiting the Earth at a speed of over 17,000 miles per hour.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarian.
Recent Tartaria.
Exertus. So I've been waiting for somebody else to make a video about this since my last video before I brought it up.